All right, if you have your Bibles open to, I almost said October. I don't even know why I almost said that. That's weird. Brain. Ugh. All right, let's try that again. Let's open our Bibles to the book of 1 Corinthians. It doesn't even sound like October. And so let's get there this morning and get started. And so, as you guys probably know, and that coming up in just a couple of weeks is the Winter Olympics. Now, the Winter Olympics are not my favorite. I'm a Summer Olympics guy. All right, I prefer that to winter. There's not a lot of sports that I can get behind in the Winter Olympic competition space. Now, Winter Olympics does possess a sport that I could actually compete in at the highest level, known as curling. Now, I see those cats, and I'm like, those are my people. All right, they're all, at least the American. Now you go. Don't look at the European. All the Europeans are like 6 foot tall, 150 pounds, perfect weight, size, height. The Americans roll out there. They're all about 260, 270, a little heavier, got some facial hair, a little loud, kind of party probably on the side, have a great time. They're probably all eating fries right before they go. I was like, those are my guys. And I could do that. And so, but I got to thinking about the Olympics because this message that we're going to look at, we're talking about starting right. And I thought it was a good place to start this morning as we enter into a new year. And there's a lot of, every time January 1 hits, we are all notorious for, in some way, shape, or fashion, some of us make bolder proclamations than others, right? That, I'm going to get in the gym. I'm going to lose some weight. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to do better at this. I'm going to work harder at that. I'm going to read my Bible more. I'm going to memorize some scripture. I'm going to do this. We all start setting lots of goals. And the key to that, right, if you're going to be really successful, is discipline and starting right. Because if you try to do too much too fast, it never goes well, right? If I try to go to the gym tomorrow, which I'm probably not going to, so I'll just go ahead and put that out there. If I were to go to the gym tomorrow and try to go do a 3-hour workout on day one, just crush it, right? And probably not, that's not going to be you got to kind of ease into that thing, right? And start building up habits and discipline and work. You got to start right. And I find it interesting, Paul uses a lot of terminology, and so we know in the ancient 1st and 2nd century that the Romans had a ton of influence over all of culture, the whole world. And they had actually taken over, and the reason I bring up the Olympics is the Romans had taken over the ancient Greek Olympics. They were now in charge of it. The height of the Olympic Games in Athens would have about 50,000 people in attendance. That's how popular those games were. And they competed in things like, they had a long jump, they had running, they had lots of combat sports, believe it or not. The early days of MMA were actually fought in Athens, what they called pankratron. If I'm saying that right, hold on. I wrote it down because it was pankration. Pankration. P-A-N-K-R-A-T-I-O-N. Look it up, not lying. All right, and so it was an early form of combat sport. You had boxing. So we put that in mind for a little bit. Go back and read a lot of Paul's letters. Paul had been to the Olympics. He talks about boxing. He talks about running. He talks about races. He talks about prizes and finishing in places. There is no doubt, as Paul being a Roman citizen had been to the Olympics, because he used it a lot as a descriptor of doing things and disciplining yourself in a process. So even Paul himself might have been some sort of athlete and competed at some level because he used it a lot as a descriptor when he talked about disciplining himself and starting the right way. Okay, so we're going to look at a text where he does that today. We're starting in verse 24, but I thought to kind of give you a visual this morning, I talked to my daughter Elena. She's going to help me for a second this morning, because starting right is important, correct? Because when you start right, you can reach a goal that you thought pretty impossible. Okay? But the only way you can get and do something that's bigger than you thought imaginable was you got to start right. I can't go curl next month. Maybe I could. I don't know. It doesn't seem, I yell sweep, sweep, sweep. I mean, I don't know. They don't seem to be doing a ton, all right? But like, there's a lot of talking and yelling. And and my wife, I sweep a kitchen like you've never seen, all right? And so I feel like when that guy, I can get it down, I can get it going. I can make that curve, I can make the stone curve. But it's all about starting right. I can't jump into can you imagine in a couple of years, when, for instance, right, Oklahoma City, who would have thought in your lifetime that Oklahoma City would host 2 Olympic sports? Right? How crazy is that, right? That's wild. Softball and then the water competition sports are in downtown Oklahoma City, the rowing. If I just showed up down there in my, my swimming trunks, my Tevas, right, and a life jacket and a row and a little boat, some oars, like, Team USA, let's go. Why? That would be ridiculous, right? Because I can't just jump in the middle of that because I have not done what those athletes have spent their lives preparing for, that moment, because they started right. All right? So, lead us to 6th pew. Just go stand there for me. Count it out. Senior in high school, guys, there we go. And so, now, look at this for a minute, all right? I thought about this last night. And I was like, I'm putting this in the sermon. To start right is important. This is roughly, give or take, didn't get the measuring tape out this morning, guys, so I apologize if I'm a little inaccurate. Those of you who are stickler to details, my apologies. This is about 29 and a half feet. This is how far Michael Powell jumped in 1996 in the Atlanta Olympics to set the world record in the long jump. Do you think Michael Powell just woke up that morning when it was 100 degrees in Atlanta and said, I'm going to go jump 3 basketball goals? That's how far this is. He jumped, stacked 1 basketball goal on top of the other, and lay it flat. That's how far he jumped. 29 3/4 inch. Sets the world record, and it may never be broken. The long jump athlete at the University of Oklahoma just a couple of days ago set the school record for the long jump. It was like 27 feet. Everybody's like, that's awesome. It's like, that's still like 3 feet short from the world record. The only way you can do something like this is you got to start right. And it comes down to my other, like, you can sit down. I think they get the point now. I hope so. But she did a great job, didn't she? Woo! Stood by that pew like a champ. All right? So, my other daughter's boyfriend, he's a long jumper, right? And he's a really good one, a state medaler in 6A in the long jump. We were talking about it last night. That's how this kind of came up into my head, and I thought about this process. He's really, really good. He's like 7 feet away from doing something like that. And we were talking about, he's like, that'll never be broken. And I don't think I was like, I don't know. A lot of people thought when he did it, everybody's like, there's no way. Bob Beamon set it, the original world record, in the 1960 Olympics. Right? It was 36 years later before someone even broke that record. And we're 30 years into it, and it still stands today. Michael Powell's record from the 96 Olympics in Atlanta. But it's all about starting right. And Max will tell you, if you talk to Max, it's all about your initial steps. If your initial step is wrong, you'll never get the jump right. It's all about the first couple of steps. It's not about, it's timing it perfect. Over and over and over again, disciplining that start so that when the start hits, it's right. Because if you don't start right and you falter, what happens? You disqualify yourself. You don't get to run the race. It's a false start. It's jumping off sides. It's getting it off by that much. And Paul is imploring us in 1 Corinthians, start right. Discipline your body and your mind to seek after the things of God and start in a way that glorifies Him. So let's jump into 1 Corinthians chapter 9, starting in verse 24. He says, do you not all know that in a race there is a prize? So he understands that when you run a race, right, you compete to win. Right? They understood that. right? They understood the Olympics. They knew that there was a first place and a last place. They understood that you don't just go out and run just because. You run. Part of the training and the hard work and all of the things is you want to win. At the end, you want to be the best at what you do, right? And so he was trying to explain this idea through the use of competition in sports, a very, very popular thing that everybody in his audience would have understood. Everyone is like, yeah, I mean, I get that. I would want to, if I was going to train and get to this place, that I would want to do so in a way that honors what I'm doing and that I would be successful in doing it. He says, do you not know that in a race, the runners run, but only one receives that prize? There's only one that wins, though, right? There's not multiple. There's such thing as a participation trophy, but at the end of the day, there's only one that really wins, right? So run that you may obtain it. Paul says, okay then, if you are going to follow after Jesus, be the best at it. Run in a way that you obtain it, that you get it, that you accomplish it, that every day you discipline your body and your mind and your words. Hard things come. You don't always win. But we're not going to disqualify ourselves because of lack of discipline as a follower. Paul said himself, I discipline my body daily. God, protect my mind, protect my words. David wrote it like this: may the meditations of my heart and the words of my mouth be pleasing and acceptable in your sight, O God. Luke, the gospel writer, says, may out of the overflow of my heart, my mouth speaks. It was this idea that God, may I meditate on you, we've preached that passage out of Psalm chapter 1 where we delight in the laws of the Lord both day and night, and because of that discipline and because of that work and because of that things, we are not disqualifying ourselves, but in fact we are starting right and we're putting ourselves in a position to win. We're putting ourselves in a position to be successful. The college football national championships tomorrow night. How many of you guys had 3 years, just 3 years ago, on your bingo card said in 3 years that the Indiana Hoosiers will play for the national championship football? That's not on anybody's bingo card in this room, I promise you. If you say that, you stand up and say, I did, liar. You know, it's like nobody. They are the losingest program until 2 years ago. Just 2 years ago. I feel bad for Northwestern in Chicago. They are now the losingest program in college football history. They were like, they've been holding on to the second to last place for a long time. Well, we're not the worst. We're not Indiana. And now we're like, oh, we're so the worst. Indiana, up until 2 years ago, the losingest program ever in the history of college football. The worst. They could literally wake up every day and say, are you guys good? No, we're actually the worst. Like, how do you know that? No, like, literally, we're the worst. There's 110 of us out here that play this sport at the Division I level, and the record's very clear. We are the worst. The worst. And in 2 years, they're playing for a national championship. Now, how does that happen? I do not know. I do believe Kurt Cignetti might be some sort of sorcerer or whatever. I don't know, the head coach. He's doing stuff with those guys I can't even begin to fathom. All right? But he's kind of a unique character. But you know, I've watched him play several times this year. And obviously, you guys know I've coached. I've talked about that a lot. You know why they are good? They do not make mistakes. They will let you make all the mistakes. And they will just capitalize on them. They put themselves in a position to be ready to strike when you falter. That's it. They have predicated their entire, they don't get penalties. They don't make turnovers. They don't jump off sides. I coach offensive line. The other night when they played Alabama in the Rose Bowl, just weird, let's nerd out some football talk for a second. All right? They just took their 5 biggest guys and beat up their 5 biggest guys and got right behind them, went straight forward. Didn't do anything fancy. Didn't do anything complicated. They turned around. They looked at one of the greatest college football programs ever and them being known as the worst and said, our 5 guys are better than your 5 guys. And that's exactly what they did. Their linemen went slide step forward every time and just pulverized Alabama in doing it. Ran for like 300 yards that day and beat them 38-3 and made zero mistakes. Why do I tell you that story? It's important when we discipline ourselves. When we discipline ourselves and we focus and we put a simple process in front of us, we don't make mistakes. God honors that. Are we perfect? No, by any stretch. That's not the point. The point is we put ourselves in a place by daily disciplining ourselves, and we start right, and we focus on the things that are good and of God in His Scripture. When we do that, we are successful. God honors and blesses us in lots of different ways. We win the prize. We don't disqualify ourselves. We win this race that God puts before us. So let's dig in a little bit later. It says every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath. But he said now. So he kind of turns the story here a little bit by saying this. Yes, you win a prize, but it's perishable. It rusts, it falls apart, people forget about it. Right? He said, but you, listener, follower, you are imperishable. Guys, you are a heavenly being having an earthly experience. You are created by the Most High God, and you are an imperishable thing, meaning you do not perish. Right? John 3:16, right? So that you would not, what? Perish. Right? Because you're imperishable. He's like, you're not a wreath that gets thrown on a head and says, ooh, I'm a big winner. You're a perfect creation in the eyes of God. And the prize that you get by disciplining yourself and following Jesus and starting right is an eternity with that Creator. There is no greater gift. There is no, that while we were yet sinners, Christ still died for us. You are a child of God. You have been adopted by the Most High King. And because of that, He has made you imperishable. He has made you not something that rusts and gets old and tattered. So, my mother-in-law hosted this party over Christmas. It was their New Year's Eve party. They call it bunco. They haven't played bunco in 20 years. But they still call it their bunco group, which I think is hysterical. We're playing bunco. I'm like, when was the last time you group of ne'er-do-wells actually played bunco? And it's been like 15 years, but they still call it their bunco group. And I'm not kidding you, like 30 years they've been getting together doing this. They just rotate these houses. They've been all their children went to church together. They all went to Sunday school together. They've been in church together for all of their adult lives, and they still gather. There's about 10 or 12 of them that still get together. It's hysterical. Well, it was Ron and Marcia's time to host. And so that came with us going over. Ashley was helping decorate and doing flowers and just doing all these different types of things. Marcia my mother-in-law just recently retired, which has been awesome. All right, so she's been going through lots of stuff. She's got time to do it now, right? And so she's been going, and I mean, the treasures that she has found in that house of her. Photos, old things from college and high school, pictures, stuff that just thought was lost to time, right? And they're good to look at, and they're fond memories. But those things will perish. They will, in some way, shape, or fashion, they will cease to exist at some point. Lost to time, trash, something gets accidentally thrown away, you name it. They just perish. You do not. You are imperishable. The prize that you are chasing is imperishable. This is a trophy that does not rust. It is a trophy that does not, the writer of the gospel says that you store up in heaven are eternal. Not things that rust and get eaten by moths, the scripture says, but something that lasts forever. You are storing treasures in heaven when you do so. When you chase and discipline yourself to follow after God. I do not box, right? I do not punch the air, but I discipline my body and keep it under control. I discipline my body, my mind, my spirit, my words. That one's tough. All of those things. Every day. I don't just throw my hand. He uses the word, I don't box the air, beat the air aimlessly with no point. But instead, I have a plan and a process to discipline my body daily. Heart, soul, mind, spirit. I made a joke the other night. We had this young man that we used to joke all the time. He's a senior. He graduates this year. He's a wonderful young man, and I hope he goes on to do great things. But there was something about left and right. Man, that joker could not get right on the football field. It's the simplest thing we do, right? Left and right. You've probably known this, my man, since you were like 5 or 6, what left and right is. We felt pretty confident about it. You're 18, right? You know how to turn right and left in a car. You know, go right and left down the hallway to get to class. You're probably going to have right and left in a particular store to find something that you're looking for. But you get him on a 100-yard grass field, and it is wildly confusing left and right. We used to joke all the time. I was like, I am going to write L on one hand, and I'm going to write R on the other. And when we call a play, I'm going to put L and R on my hands, too, on tape so that you can see it. And I'm going to, every snap, if I have to, just look over, and I will hold the letter up in the direction that you should go. And he's like, we don't have to do that, Coach. I'm like, I think we do. He's like, no, you don't. I was like, we're week 7 now, my man. We've played 7 games, and you're 7 for 7, going the wrong direction. If going the wrong direction was the goal of this game, we would be number 1 in the state because you're so good at it. And we tried to be so chill about it. He was just like, he just couldn't. And we even put, guys, in our plays, we put L's in the play. It might be Lexus. What direction do you think the word Lexus goes? Everyone, left. If I were to say rodeo, what way do you think that goes? You guys could all play for us tomorrow. That was tricky for him. Because in what that looks like on tape is aimlessness. Bless his heart. It was just, he'd get to stumbling in the wrong direction, and all the play, because he's going against the grain. He's going the direction he's not supposed to go. Everything's going this way, and he's all like banging into people going the other way. And you're like, it looks real funny on tape. Why? Because it's aimless. It's no direction. It's not the direction. It's pointless direction. Paul says, I don't do this. I don't just beat in the air with no purpose. I know where I'm going and what I'm doing. Why? Because I start right. And I know where I'm going, and I know where God is taking me. And because of that, I don't lose sight. There's a great story that came out of the Vietnam War that when, I don't remember the pilot's name, but he lost, it's been recorded, it's kind of a unique story. He lost power in his airplane. He still had flight, but he lost power, and he had the aircraft carrier had lost power on the deck, had lost light. He was coming in for landing. Now, he could still radio, but he could not see the runway. And he was completely freaked out because he's trying to land on an aircraft carrier in the middle of the ocean that he can't see because there's no light. And all of a sudden, he goes, I see the trail. I see the trail. I've got my bearings. And they're like, we don't know. It was kind of wild. The aircraft carrier's giant propellers had started churning up this phytoplankton in the ocean that was bioluminescent. And it started to glow in the ocean. And it left a trail, and that's how he was able to find his way. To land his plane on an aircraft carrier was because these propellers were churning up this natural light in the ocean, and he was able to ultimately land safely and follow that trail and land his plane. It all matters. Every bit of it. May you be a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Right? Whatever that looks like, it's not pointless. It's not aimless. It all matters. But you got to start right. You got to get your steps right. You got to know where you're going and how you're going to get there. You got to have a plan and a purpose, and God is the author of that. If you'll let him. Carrie Underwood said it best, man, Jesus, take the wheel, right? Sang a song about it. All right, let's get to our closing here. But I did my body to keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. Paul says best, if I'm not doing this, how can I stand before you and say it? I'm disqualified before I ever start. I have no authority to say these things. I have no strength to say these things. And if you go back and read not all of chapter 9, all of chapter 9 is awesome, but if you go back the section right before, Paul is talking about what he must do to reach the Jew and the Gentile and the Greek. He's like, I will do whatever it takes. To the Jew, I became the Jew. To the Gentile, I became the Gentile. To the rich, whatever it took. He's like, I was going to put myself in a place to be able to have the conversation. If it meant I had to go a certain place or do a certain thing, I was willing to do it so that the gospel may go forward. Because the gospel was all that mattered to him. And in doing so, he would do whatever it took to be able to have that conversation. Right? And so when he says, lest I be disqualified, he meant it. He was like, this matters to me more than anything else in the world, and I cannot lose or miss the opportunity, so thus I got to get it right. I got to get it right, because I may not have this chance again. I may not get this opportunity again. It may not come around a second time. So I better be ready when the time comes. I'll be ready when my number's called. When I've got to be ready, and I've got to be right. And in doing so, we prepare ourselves so that when that moment comes, we are not disqualified. When our heat's called to run the race, and they call your name, are you going to be ready to get in those blocks and go? And compete to win. Not for some prize that's going to rust and fall apart, but for something that's imperishable. Because the conversation you may have with your coworker, or your family, or your friend, or whoever it may be, or somebody that you know, the one time that the opportunity presents itself to have that gospel presentation, that gospel conversation, may be the only window that ever opens. And that might be the one time, and that might be the preordained moment for the Jew or the Greek that you have that conversation with, and that might be the moment for them. And God he's gone to the bullpen and he's called you out, the ace. Said, I need your 100-mile fastball right now. You got to be ready. You got to be ready. That's what we train for, right? That's what we prepare ourselves for. My dad was a Vietnam vet. He was a combat veteran. And I'll close with this story. He passed away a long time ago. My dad did, when I was 19. But he went to the Army as the Vietnam conflict was breaking out. He went and volunteered. He thought, if I volunteer, I won't go. Because no way, I'm not going to let myself get drafted, right? So I'll volunteer, I'll sign up, I'll do the right thing. Well, that backfired. But you know what he trained? He trained for himself. He trained with he was a kind of a wild deal, but he was pretty good with a machine gun. Long story short, he was a door gunner on a helicopter, on the Hueys. If you've seen a movie where a guy hangs out the big giant door with a machine gun, he flew several combat missions in Vietnam doing that. Right? Per capita, more deaths than any other infantryman in the Vietnam conflict through the early 70s. Their death toll rate was super high. And so I asked him, we didn't talk about it a lot when I was a young man, but all the way up until when I was a teenager, we'd have these conversations, and I would be like, were you ever, like, afraid or scared? He's like, oh, yeah. I said, man, I mean, you got to be kidding me. Like, it's crazy. You're flying this helicopter, and everybody's shooting rockets at you, and machine guns, and everything else. He goes, but, I said, what did you lean into? What do you lean into? He's like, you lean into your training, man. So that's what you do. You lean into what you know and what you are good at, and you focus solely on that. You don't worry about anything else. He's like, I can't control anything else but what I am doing and what I am good at. And I mean to tell you what, I I was pretty good behind that machine gun. And so I said, I hunkered down behind that thing, and that's what I did. And I focused all my energy and all my thoughts and all my everything on that. And that's what I did. And that's what got me through the scary stuff, was what I knew. I had trained for, they had poured, a lot of money and a lot of resources into me to be good at that. He said, so I just decided I better be good at it. And that's what I'm going to do. God, through his precious word, is invested in you and poured into you to be good at it. When that hard moment comes that you're nervous or scared or a little fearful about, you lean into what you know. You lean to what you're good at. You focus on that. You don't get caught what's going on around you. Look straight ahead and focus in. You don't box aimlessly. You don't get wished and washed by the waves. Just stay focused, because you started right, and you did not disqualify yourself. You put yourself in a place to be where you're supposed to be when God wants to use you. So in 2026, man, let's start right. You don't have to be a Bible historian tomorrow. But you know what? Spend a little time in his word today. Right? A little bit more, and read and challenge yourself and push yourself, so that when your number is called and you're put in that moment, you jump 30 feet. You do something impossible. You do something incredible. Because you've made yourself available. Right? I bet you money, marbles, and chalk that when Michael Pyle stepped up to that running board and marked off his steps and got ready to I bet he thought, I'm jumping 30 feet today. No doubt in my mind. I would bet you he probably didn't think that. I bet he thought, I'm just guessing here, but I bet he was like, steps right, focus on the process. I know what the athletes I've been around, the great athletes that I've seen do amazing things, they just kind of focus on these little tiny process details all the time. And then the result, they let the result be the result, as long as they do the process right. I bet you that's all he did. I bet you he just focused, he did what he did every single time before he jumped. Didn't think anything else about it. It's like, it's just another jump. It's the same jump, the same thing when he was in high school, middle school, college, whatever. It's like, it's just the same thing. It's the same length, it's the same board, it's the same type of sand down there. There's nothing different about it. It just happens to be on maybe the biggest stage ever. He just did what he knew, focused in on that. And the result, he let the result be the result. When we start right, and we do what it is that God asks us to do, and we make ourselves disciplined, and certainly we make him a tool, and we allow him to use us as a tool of his instrument and his mercy and his grace and his will, wherever it is. Church, are you in charge of the results? No. Creator of the universe is. But he's asked you to come along for the ride. So we got to be ready. Let's pray.